The title of this short story is Genesis. Dr. Bodhi says, "Finally, we meet, Rosalie. I was worried that you wouldn't come in." Rosalie says, "I had to wait until I was ready." Dr. Bodhi says, "Why now?" Rosalie says, "It's time." Dr. Bodhi says, "Time for what exactly?" Rosalie says, "I'm ready to heal." Dr. Bodhi says, "Do you want to pick up from our telephone session?" Rosalie says, "Where do you think we should start, Dr. Bodhi?" Dr. Bodhi says, "Let's start with Genesis." Rosalie's eyes get glassy. She raises her head in an attempt to keep the tears from escaping her eyes. Dr. Bodhi hands her a tissue box. She grabs a Kleenex with her left hand and stares at her ring finger. Rosalie says, "My Genesis is ciphering." Rosalie closes her eyes. In her mind, she reflects on the first time that she and Cypher met. It was a dark and rainy night. She was filling in for a co-worker during a late shift at Canta Karaoke Lounge. After her shift, she stood under her large pink umbrella as she waited on the bus stop alone. A black car stopped in front of her. It was Cypher, the star of karaoke that night, who had the attention of all the ladies as he performed a Babyface song, which was fitting since he looked and sounded the part. Cypher had offered Rosalie a ride. Normally, Rosalie would never accept a ride from someone she didn't know, but there was something in his eyes that felt so welcoming and familiar, and so she acquiesced. Rosalie invited Cypher up for coffee. They spoke for hours about music, poetry, family, and politics. Cypher learned that Rosalie was an only child who was estranged from her mother and father, and Cypher revealed that he was an orphan who never met his mother or father. What they had in common, among other things, was a sense of longing and loneliness. It was on that rainy night that Rosalie and Cypher made love for the first time. From that night, Rosalie and Cypher were inseparable. From the morning until the end of the night, they talked and texted throughout the day, making time for romantic rendezvous daily. A year later, after getting engaged, Rosalie and Cypher found out that they were pregnant with a baby girl. Blue skies, rainbows, and butterflies was the theme of their love affair. Until Rosalie says, "Jesus!" Rosalie lets out a deafening wail of pain, and tears pour from her eyes like waterfalls. She recounts the anniversary of when she and Cypher met. Cypher was still making his way home from a business trip, and Rosalie was working the late shift at the lounge. As she stood in the rain, waiting on the bus under her pink umbrella, two men approached her, asking for change to get on the bus. She began to reach in her bag. Suddenly, one of the men snatched her purse. Then they both pulled her into an alley, beat her up, and raped her. Rosalie was unconscious on the cold, wet ground, and 3 hours later, someone found her and called the police. Rosalie was rushed to the hospital. She was so badly beaten that her face was unrecognizable. When Cypher arrived to the hospital, Dr. Devlin had informed him of the miscarriage that resulted from the attack. The news broke Cypher. As he looked down at Rosalie, he fell down on his knees and cried. They were going to name their little girl Genesis. Little did they know that her precious life would end inside Rosalie's womb.